The academy was a place of pride, fear, and tradition. It was not just a school. It was the center of military training for dozens of alien worlds. Inside its steel walls, cadets learned how to fire plasma rifles, control starships, and survive the most dangerous battles in the galaxy. Every corner of the academy spoke of technology. Machines humming, weapons glowing, and instructors shouting commands. To them, progress meant bigger guns, stronger armor, and sharper blades. But there was one thing the academy had forgotten, something they had pushed aside as useless: barehanded combat, fighting without weapons. To most of them, it was a joke, a relic of the past. Why use fists when you had plasma cannons? Why learn to block with arms when energy shields existed? The academy had convinced itself that hands and muscle could never match steel and laser. That belief was about to be tested. The cadets filled the main hall, a wide arena with bright lights and metallic floors. The air buzzed with noise, shouts, laughter, and whispers in dozens of alien tongues. At the center of the room stood the academy's greatest test dummy. It wasn't an ordinary figure. Its frame was made of alloy designed to withstand the full force of training weapons. Its surface was scarred from years of hits, but never once had it broken. Cadets came here to prove their skill, but always with weapons. The idea of facing it barehanded was absurd. That morning, something different was about to happen. A name was called from the datapad of an instructor. A human name. Heads turned. Eyes searched. Then she stepped forward. The human girl was small compared to many of the towering cadets. Some of them were twice her size, with scales, wings, or armored shells. She looked almost fragile beside them. Her uniform was clean, simple, and she carried no weapon. No blade, no staff, no rifle. Only her own body. Her calm steps echoed through the hall, and every sound seemed to grow quieter as she approached the testing area. The whispers began. "Is she serious?" a reptilian cadet muttered, his scales glowing faintly under the lights. "She must be joking." Another laughed, sharp teeth showing. "Humans, always so reckless." An insectoid cadet clicked with his mandibles. The instructors exchanged doubtful glances. They had seen overconfident cadets before. They always failed. And yet, there was something in the way she walked, steady, calm, unafraid, that unsettled them. She stopped in front of the dummy. For a moment, she simply looked at it. Her eyes studied its frame the way a hunter studies prey. She raised her hand and placed her palm lightly against its chest. The dummy was cold, solid, unmoving. To everyone else, it was impossible. To her, it was only a challenge. One instructor cleared his throat. "Cadet, select a weapon," he ordered, his voice echoing. The girl shook her head. "I don't need one." The words spread through the crowd instantly. "I don't need one." Gasps followed. Some laughed out loud. Others leaned forward, suddenly more interested than before. A human, refusing a weapon at the most weapon-focused academy in the galaxy. It was madness, or arrogance, or both. But her face showed neither madness nor arrogance. It showed focus, determination, a quiet strength. She took a step back, pulling her hand away from the dummy. Her fists closed slowly, tightly, until the knuckles turned white. The hall fell strangely quiet. Even those who mocked her felt a strange pull, as if something was about to happen. The reptilian cadets laughed again, but the sound was forced now. "She'll break her hand," one said. "She'll cry in pain, and then they'll send her back home," another added. But deep inside, none of them could look away. The instructors waited, expecting a mistake. They were already preparing the speech they always gave to failures. Discipline matters. Technology matters. Weapons matter. But this time, their words stuck in their throats. Something about this human girl didn't fit the usual picture of failure. The girl inhaled slowly, closing her eyes for one brief second. In her mind, the voices around her faded. The hall disappeared. She remembered Earth, the heavy gravity that made every step a lesson in endurance, the long history of survival, the countless fights her people had faced without the help of advanced weapons. She opened her eyes again, and all that memory shone within them. Her body shifted slightly, taking a stance that none of the aliens recognized. Her knees bent just enough, her shoulders loose, her fists steady. It was simple, natural, and yet it carried weight. The kind of stance that said, "I know exactly what I am about to do." A hush spread over the cadets. Even those who had been laughing went silent now. The hall was still, the lights seemed brighter, and every ear waited for the sound that was about to come. One single human stood against the Academy's strongest dummy. No weapons, no armor, just her hands. The question spread through every mind in that silent moment. Could she really do it? Her fist began to move. The girl's fist cut through the air, fast and sharp. For a moment, the hall seemed frozen in time. The sound of her strike echoed before the impact even landed. Then it came, an explosive crack that rang through the steel walls. Her knuckles connected with the chest of the test dummy, and the whole frame shuddered. The vibration traveled up its alloy body, rattling the bolts that held it together. Gasps filled the room. The cadets blinked, stunned. The instructors straightened, their eyes widening. No one expected even the smallest dent. But when the dust of impact settled, the impossible had already begun to show. A thin crack had appeared across the dummy's chest plate. At first, the cadets thought their eyes were lying. They rubbed them, leaned forward, and whispered in disbelief. That dummy was designed to take the heaviest weapon strikes. Blades bounced off. Energy staffs only left burns. Yet a bare human fist had carved a line across its armor. She cracked it. One cadet whispered, his voice shaking. "No, that's impossible." Another snapped, refusing to believe. But the evidence was right in front of them. The crack ran deep, like a scar across the dummy's surface. The instructors tried to remain calm, but even they couldn't hide their shock. One of them quickly tapped his datapad, pulling up the dummy's integrity readings. The screen flickered, and his throat went dry. The armor had indeed been compromised by over 20% from a single human strike. The reptilian cadets, who had mocked her earlier, shifted uneasily. Their scales rippled as a natural sign of fear. The insectoid cadets clicked their mandibles nervously. They had seen hundreds of tests, but nothing like this. The girl lowered her fist slowly, her breathing steady. She didn't smile, didn't celebrate. She simply looked at the dummy, as if testing her own power, measuring it in silence. To her, this was only the beginning. An instructor finally spoke, his voice forced. "Again. Strike again." The crowd roared. Some shouted in excitement, others in anger. Many were desperate to see her fail the second time, to prove the first strike was only luck. The human girl stepped back, rolling her shoulders. Her knuckles were red, but she didn't show pain. Her stance shifted again, calm and firm. She inhaled slowly, her chest rising, and then she struck. This time, the sound was louder. A sharp crack thundered through the hall as her fist slammed into the same spot. The dummy's chest plate splintered further, the crack spreading like lightning across its surface. Tiny shards of alloy broke off and clattered to the ground. The crowd erupted into chaos. "She's breaking it. No way, no way, no way. This is a trick. It has to be." But no one could explain how the toughest dummy at the academy was falling apart under bare fists. The instructors froze, their pride collapsing with the dummy. The academy had laughed at barehanded combat for generations, calling it outdated, weak, primitive. Yet here was a human, tearing down their belief with nothing but bone and flesh. The girl stepped closer, raising her hand once more. She looked around at the cadets who doubted her, at the instructors who tried to hide their shock, and then back at the dummy. Her voice cut through the noise, calm but strong. "You doubt barehanded combat? Watch carefully." Her fist came down a third time. The strike shook the floor itself. The dummy groaned, metal screeching, and then, snap! With a sound that echoed like thunder, the entire chest plate split. The dummy's torso caved in, the reinforced alloy snapping into two uneven halves. The massive figure toppled, one half crashing to the left, the other falling to the right. The ground trembled as it hit. Silence. The crowd went silent all at once. No whispers, no laughter, no jeers. Only stunned silence. Hundreds of cadets stared with wide eyes. Instructors stood frozen in disbelief. The human girl lowered her fists, her breathing calm, her face unreadable. For a long moment, no one moved. The broken dummy lay across the floor, sparks flickering from its damaged joints. It was something no cadet, no weapon, no instructor had ever done before. Finally, one voice rose from the crowd. She destroyed it with her hands. The silence broke into a storm. Some cadets shouted in awe, cheering for her. Others screamed in denial, calling it a trick, demanding an explanation. Instructors barked orders, trying to control the chaos. But the hall was alive with voices, arguments, and disbelief. The girl stood quietly at the center of it all, the broken dummy at her feet. She didn't need to argue. She didn't need to defend herself. The proof was there, lying in two shattered pieces. The instructors finally found their voices. One of them stepped forward, trembling with anger. This proves nothing, he barked. The dummy was faulty, but even as he spoke, his datapad glowed with readings. It showed the truth. The dummy structure had been perfect before the test. It had fallen only because of the human strength. The cadets knew it, the instructors knew it, and the girl knew it. In that moment, the Academy realized something it had tried to deny for years. Barehanded combat was not dead. It was alive and it was dangerous. And in the hands of a human, it was unstoppable. The girl raised her bruised but steady fists, not in pride but in quiet defiance. Her eyes scanned the crowd, and many cadets felt chills run down their spines. For the first time, they understood that humans were not fragile. They were something far more terrifying. And this was only the beginning. The broken dummy still lay scattered across the floor. Sparks flickered from its chest as pieces of alloy smoked under the lights. The cadets could not look away. They whispered, argued, shouted, but no one dared step into the circle where the human girl stood. Her fists were red, her breathing steady, her eyes fixed on the wreckage. The instructors tried to regain control. One barked orders for silence, his voice echoing through the hall. But the noise of disbelief drowned him out. The Academy prided itself on unshakable discipline, yet now even its most loyal cadets could not hide their shock. Bare hands had achieved what weapons could not. An older instructor finally stepped forward, his jaw tight with anger. His pride as an alien warrior, as a defender of the Academy's ways, was burning. "This proves nothing," he shouted. "One strike of luck does not make a warrior. You will do it again. You will face another test." The cadets roared at the challenge. Some cheered, desperate to see her repeat the impossible. Others sneered, certain that she would fail the second time. The hall buzzed like a storm ready to explode. The girl didn't flinch. She looked at the instructor, then at the fallen dummy, and then nodded. "Bring another," she said simply. The words sent a chill through the crowd. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't backing down. She was asking for more. The instructors whispered to each other in frustration. The Academy only had a few dummies strong enough to withstand advanced weapon drills. Destroying one was already a loss. But to bring another and risk the same humiliation? It was unthinkable. Still, their pride forced them. They could not let this moment pass as a victory for her. With a wave of his hand, the older instructor ordered a second dummy brought in. 2 cadets rolled it forward on a platform. This one gleamed newer, its armor untouched, its joints stiff and strong. The lights reflected off its polished surface, making it look even more indestructible than the last. The hall went silent as the platform locked into place. The human girl stepped forward again, rolling her shoulders. Her knuckles were bruised now, swollen and raw. The crowd waited to see her hesitate, to see fear cross her face. But her expression never changed. Calm, steady, certain. "She can't do it again," one cadet muttered, shaking his head. "She'll break her hands this time," another said. "She'll prove she's only flesh, like the rest of us." The instructors clung to those words, hoping they were true. The girl raised her hands, closed her fists, and positioned herself before the dummy. Her stance was simple, nothing flashy, just balanced, natural, and strong. She took a deep breath. The crowd leaned forward. Then she struck. The sound was deafening. Her fist slammed against the dummy's chest, and a sharp vibration rang out. The armor shivered. Dust cracked off the ceiling. The cadets gasped. A mark appeared, small but clear, where her knuckles had landed. "She marked it!" someone shouted. No, that's just surface damage," another argued, his voice shaking. The girl didn't stop. She pulled back and struck again. Another booming crack echoed, and the mark deepened into a dent. The cadets cried out in disbelief. Their eyes darted between the dent and her fists, between her small frame and the massive dummy. Every strike carried weight, not just of bone and muscle, but of will. Her third strike landed, and the dent widened. Sparks flew from the dummy's chest as the alloy buckled slightly inward. The cadets roared in shock, their voices filling the hall. Even the instructors could not hide their horror. The older instructor slammed his fist into his palm. "Enough! She will not humiliate this academy again," he barked. But the girl ignored him. She stepped back, braced herself, and with a sudden roar of effort, she struck with both fists at once. The impact was like thunder. The floor shook under their boots. The dummy's chest cracked down the middle with a sound like tearing metal. A jagged line split across its armor, glowing faintly as sparks erupted from inside. The heavy figure staggered on its base, then leaned, and finally crashed onto its side with a boom that rattled the hall. Silence followed. The cadets stared wide-eyed, unable to breathe. Two dummies, both designed to withstand weapons, had been broken in a single day by bare fists. No one had words for it. Even the insects clicked their mandibles in stunned silence. The human girl stood tall, fists lowered at her sides. Sweat rolled down her face, her knuckles bleeding slightly, but her eyes burned with unshaken fire. She turned to the instructors, who stood frozen. "You doubt humans. You doubt bare hands," she said, her voice carrying through the hall. "But doubt does not change the truth. Strength is not only metal. Strength is in the one who dares to stand." The cadets felt the words like a strike to their own chests. Some stared at her with new respect, their doubt replaced with awe. Others still shook their heads, unable to accept what they had seen. But all of them knew one thing: the academy could never ignore her again. The challenge had escalated, and she had risen higher than anyone expected. And deep down, every cadet now asked themselves the same question. If she could destroy machines with her hands, what could she do against them? The second dummy lay shattered across the floor, its chest split wide, sparks flashing weakly from its broken joints. Smoke drifted into the air, curling above the stunned faces of the cadets. The noise that had filled the hall only moments ago was gone. Silence ruled now, heavy and suffocating. At the center of it stood the human girl, her hands bloodied but steady, her breath slow and controlled. She did not celebrate. She did not even smile. She only looked at the wreckage as if it was the most natural result in the world. To her, this was not victory, it was simply truth. The cadets struggled to process what they had seen. Some stood frozen, eyes wide. Others whispered, their voices trembling. A reptilian cadet's scales shifted nervously as he muttered, "It's not possible. Machines don't break like that." An insectoid cadet clattered his mandibles, his disbelief clear. "She is just flesh. How can flesh destroy alloy?" But the proof was lying in front of them, broken in two. The instructors were no better. Their pride was being torn apart with every crack of the dummy. For generations, they had told cadets that barehanded combat was useless. For years, they mocked the very idea of fists against steel. And now, in front of the entire academy, a single human cadet had shattered two of their strongest machines. One instructor shouted, his voice filled with anger and fear. "This is a trick. The dummies were weak, faulty." But another instructor checked his datapad, his hands shaking. The readings showed the truth. Both dummies had been in perfect condition before the test. His face grew pale. He said nothing. The crowd began to split. Some cadets shouted in support of the human girl, their voices filled with excitement. "Did you see that? She crushed it. She's stronger than all of us." Others shouted against her, desperate to hold onto the Academy's old belief. "It's a lie. Humans cheat. It's impossible. She must be hiding something." The hall boiled with noise, half awe, half denial. Through it all, the girl remained silent. Her calmness only made her more unsettling. She was not begging for recognition. She was not demanding applause. She had simply shown them what bare hands could do. The older instructor, red with rage, stepped forward until he stood only a few steps away from her. His voice thundered across the hall. "You think this proves something? You think breaking machines makes you strong? Strength is measured in real combat against living enemies, against trained warriors, not against metal dummies." His words cut through the noise, pulling silence back into the hall. Every cadet's eyes turned to him, then to the girl. The tension tightened again, thicker than before. The girl finally spoke, her voice quiet but sharp enough to carry across the arena. "Then test me. If machines are not enough, send me against what you believe is strong." The words sent a shiver down every spine. She was not only ready to face their machines, she was daring them to test her against more. The instructors froze, unsure how to respond. They had hoped she would back down after this display, that she would finally accept her limits. Instead, she was standing taller than ever, challenging the very heart of the Academy. The cadets erupted again. Some cheered wildly, thrilled by her courage. Others muttered angrily, unwilling to see their traditions challenged by a human. But all of them felt something they could not ignore. Fear. Not fear of her alone, but fear of what she represented. A young avian cadet whispered to his friend, his feathers trembling, "If one human can do this, what happens if there are more like her?" The question spread like a shadow. It clung to every corner of the hall. If humans were capable of such strength, then perhaps the galaxy had underestimated them for far too long. The instructors huddled together, whispering heatedly. Some argued to dismiss her, to call it luck and refuse further tests. Others insisted she be pushed harder, forced into the proving grounds where failure would crush her reputation. Pride and fear wrestled in their voices. Finally, the head instructor raised his hand. Silence rippled across the cadets. His expression was stern, but his eyes betrayed unease. "Very well," he said, his voice slow and deliberate. "You wish for more? Then you will have it. You will face the proving grounds. If your hands are truly enough, then prove it there." The hall erupted in chaos once more. Cadets shouted in disbelief. The proving grounds were no ordinary test, they were deadly. A place where advanced training machines, armed with weapons and programmed for combat, attacked cadets with brutal precision. Few made it through unscathed. The human girl did not flinch. She only nodded once, as if this was the answer she had been waiting for. Her calmness unsettled them even more. For the first time in years, the Academy's confidence cracked. Their pride in weapons and machines, their belief in superiority, was shaken. And deep down, every cadet realized that history had shifted. They were no longer just watching a human, they were witnessing the birth of something bigger. The Academy had doubted barehanded combat. Now they were afraid of it. And the human girl? She was ready to show them even more. The announcement of the proving grounds spread through the Academy like fire. Cadets whispered about it in the halls, in the training rooms, and even in the dining hall. Some spoke with excitement, eager to see the human girl finally fail. Others whispered in hushed voices, wondering if she might actually survive what no one else had dared attempt without weapons. But the girl herself remained calm. She walked through the Academy corridors quietly, her fists still bruised, her knuckles bandaged, but her steps steady. To her, the proving grounds were not something to fear. They were simply another challenge. One she had already been preparing for long before the Academy even knew her name. The truth of her strength was not in her fists alone. It was in her past. Humans came from Earth, a world unlike any other. While many alien worlds were rich in technology, filled with gentle climates or advanced machines that softened life, Earth was harsh. Gravity pressed heavier there than on most planets. Storms raged across its oceans and lands. Predators stalked its early people for centuries, forcing them to fight with nothing but sticks, stones, and their own hands. Survival had been humanity's first teacher, and it was a merciless one. The girl had grown up hearing those stories from her elders. Stories of warriors who fought with bare hands when weapons were lost. Stories of soldiers who pushed their bodies beyond breaking points. Stories of ancestors who endured hunger, cold, and endless battles, yet refused to fall. On Earth, every child learned that strength was not given by machines, it was built inside. Her own training had begun long before she set foot in the academy. Back home, she had woken before the sun, running across rocky ground, climbing cliffs, swimming against rushing rivers. She practiced strikes against stone walls until her knuckles bled, then healed, then hardened. Every scar on her hand carried memory, every bruise carried growth. While others trained with weapons, she trained her body to be the weapon. The cadets around her did not understand this. To them, combat was always tied to something outside themselves, a blade, a blaster, an energy shield. They laughed at fists because they had never been forced to rely on them. But the girl knew differently. She knew that a human's body, when sharpened through struggle, could rival steel. That was her secret. Not magic, not hidden machines, not tricks. Discipline, endurance, willpower. In the academy's halls, she was seen as small, fragile, even reckless. But in truth, her strength was heavier than their armor, sharper than their blades. It came from a history that no alien could erase. The night before her trial in the proving grounds, she sat alone in the dormitory courtyard. The stars stretched above her, endless and cold. Around her, other cadets watched from a distance, whispering, pointing. Some glared at her, angry that she had embarrassed the academy. Others stared in silence, trying to understand her. One young cadet, curious but afraid, finally approached. He was from a species known for their exoskeleton armor, taller and stronger looking than her. He stopped a few steps away. "Why don't you use weapons?" he asked carefully. "It would make things easier." The girl lifted her gaze to him. Her eyes were calm, not mocking, not proud, just certain. "Because weapons break," she said softly. "Because they can be taken away. Because one day, all you have left are your hands. And if they are weak, then you are already defeated." The cadet's mandibles clicked nervously. He wanted to argue, but no words came. Deep inside, he knew she was right. As the cadet walked away, he glanced back once more. The human girl had already closed her eyes, sitting still under the stars, her breathing steady like a soldier ready for battle. She did not look nervous. She looked prepared. Across the academy, the instructors gathered in a private chamber. Their pride was broken, but their fear was greater. If she succeeded in the proving grounds, it would mean that everything they had taught for generations was incomplete. Their entire system would be questioned. "She cannot be allowed to succeed," one instructor hissed. "Then the machines will break her," another said quickly. "They always do." But their words did not carry certainty, because deep down, even they had seen something in her eyes that unsettled them, something unshakable. When morning came, the entire academy gathered to witness. The proving grounds were opened, the heavy doors sliding apart to reveal a vast arena of steel, filled with combat machines waiting in silence. Cadets lined the walls above, their eyes locked on the small figure walking through the gate. The human girl stepped inside with nothing but her fists. No weapon, no armor, no shield. The doors sealed behind her. The machines stirred to life, glowing red eyes piercing the dim arena. Metal footsteps thundered as they prepared to attack. The cadets held their breath. The instructors watched with cold eyes. But the girl only lifted her fists, her stance firm, her body ready. The secret behind her strength was no longer a mystery. It was standing right there, about to face the Academy's deadliest trial. Not with weapons, but with her own unbreakable will. And for the first time, many of the cadets began to wonder, not whether she would survive, but how many machines she would bring down before the end. The massive steel doors clanged shut behind her, sealing the human girl inside the proving grounds. The sound echoed like thunder, and then the silence that followed was heavy and sharp. Above, rows of cadets filled the viewing decks, leaning forward with wide eyes. Instructors stood with their arms crossed, their faces tight, pretending to be calm but hiding their unease. The arena was vast, its floor lined with metal plates scarred by countless battles. From hidden compartments in the walls, machines stood waiting. Their glowing red eyes flickered to life one by one, casting a cold light across the chamber. The sound of gears grinding and hydraulics hissing filled the space. The ground trembled slightly as the machines powered up. There were 6 of them, combat drones built for advanced training. Each carried heavy alloy armor, reinforced limbs, and weapons built into their arms. They had been programmed to mimic enemies in real combat, swift and merciless. Many cadets trained here, but always with plasma batons, shields, or blasters. No one had ever entered unarmed. No one except her. The girl stood at the center of the arena, fists raised, feet steady on the floor. Her eyes stayed calm, scanning the machines, studying their size and their movement. To the crowd, she looked impossibly small against them, a fragile human facing mountains of steel. But she didn't bend, didn't flinch. The first machine moved. With a roar of metal, it charged forward, its heavy steps shaking the arena. Its arm swung down like a hammer, strong enough to break bone in an instant. The cadets gasped. Some turned their eyes away, certain it would crush her. But the girl stepped aside, quick as lightning. The machine's strike hit the floor, sparks flying. Before it could pull back, her fist shot forward, slamming into its joint. A sharp crack rang out, and the machine staggered as its arm dropped uselessly to its side. The crowd erupted. Some cheered in disbelief. Others shouted angrily, refusing to accept what they saw. The girl did not stop. She moved in again, dodging a second strike from the same machine, then leapt upward with speed that seemed impossible under the arena's heavy lights. Her fist connected with the machine's chest. Alloy dented under her knuckles. The drone froze, sparks bursting from its frame, then collapsed to the ground with a metallic crash. One down. The cadets leaned forward. Their hearts raced. The instructor's eyes widened despite themselves. The other 5 machines advanced together. Their glowing eyes locked on the human, their movements fast and deadly. One fired a burst of energy from its arm cannon. The beam scorched the floor as she rolled to the side, rising smoothly to her feet. Another swung at her head, but she ducked low, her fist driving into its leg joint. With a loud crack, the leg buckled, and the machine crashed down. 2 down. The crowd was roaring now. Half of them shouted her name, urging her on. The others cursed, shouting that it was impossible, that she must be enhanced, that no human could do this. The third machine lunged, its claws slashing. She caught its wrist, twisting sharply, her body spinning with the motion. The claws scraped uselessly against the floor as she drove her knee into its chest. The impact was like an explosion. The drone's armor split, sparks spilling out. Collapsed with a groan. 3 down. Her breath grew heavier now, sweat dripping down her face. Her knuckles bled freely, but her eyes burned brighter. Every strike was costing her, but she didn't slow. She couldn't. The 4th and 5th machines attacked together, one swinging low, the other aiming high. She moved between them, her body flowing like water. She struck the high one first, smashing her elbow into its head. The alloy dented with a shriek of tearing metal. As it reeled, she spun to the side, slamming her heel into the chest of the lower one. The force of her kick pushed it back several steps before it toppled onto its back, legs kicking helplessly in the air. 4 down. 5 down. The final machine stood at the far end of the arena, silent and still. It was larger than the others, built for endurance, its armor twice as thick. The cadets whispered nervously, some sure this would end her run. The instructors leaned forward, their pride desperate for this last hope. The girl stood tall, her body trembling from exhaustion, blood streaking her fists. She raised her hands once more. The final machine charged. Its steps were slower but heavier, each one shaking the ground. This massive fist swung like a falling boulder. She dodged narrowly, the wind of the strike brushing her hair. The floor cracked where it landed. She countered instantly, her fist slamming into its chest. The sound rang loud, but the armor only dented slightly. The machine did not fall. Gasps filled the hall. For the first time, she was facing something that did not break. The machine raised its arm again, striking down with brutal force. She rolled, barely escaping. Her breathing was heavy, her body aching, but her eyes never lost their fire. She struck again and again, each hit leaving another dent. Slowly, piece by piece, the armor began to bend. Finally, with a cry of effort that shook the hall, she leapt high, her entire body twisting as she brought both fists down on its chest. The sound of breaking alloy roared through the arena. The machine's chest split open, sparks spraying wildly. It staggered, swaying, and then collapsed backward with a thunderous crash that shook the entire proving grounds. The hall went silent. All 6 machines lay broken at her feet. The human girl stood there, her fists dripping blood, her chest rising and falling with deep breaths. She had no weapons, no armor, no tricks. Only her body, only her will. Above, the cadets could not contain themselves. Some screamed her name. Others sat in stunned silence, unable to believe what they had seen. The instructors, usually so confident, looked shaken. The proving grounds had been meant to break her. Instead, she had broken it. And in that silence, one truth became impossible to deny. Barehanded combat was no myth. It was power. And in the hands of a human, it was unstoppable. The arena floor was littered with broken machines. Their glowing red eyes had dimmed, their heavy frames twisted and silent. Smoke drifted through the air, rising in thin curls that shimmered under the lights. The only sound was the slow, steady breathing of the human girl who stood in the center. Her fists were raw, streaked with blood. Her uniform was torn, her body marked with bruises. Yet her eyes burned with a fire that no wound could extinguish. High above, the cadets leaned against the glass railings, speechless. Some had come expecting entertainment, waiting to laugh at a human's failure. Others had come hoping to see something unusual. None of them had imagined this. 6 of the Academy's strongest training machines destroyed. Not with weapons, not with armor, but with bare hands. The silence was heavy, thick enough to feel. No one knew how to speak into it. The instructors stood stiffly, their faces pale, their pride wounded. They had built the Academy on the belief that technology was everything. That strength came from steel, from plasma, from machines. And now, in front of their eyes, one human cadet had destroyed that belief with nothing but her body and her will. Finally, the girl straightened her back and looked up at the rows of cadets. Her voice was quiet, but it carried easily through the hall. "You thought bare hands were useless," she said. "You thought strength was only found in weapons. But you are wrong. Strength is not what you hold in your hands. It is what you carry inside." The cadets shivered at her words. They were simple, but they struck deeper than any weapon. She raised one fist, bruised and bleeding, for them all to see. "This is not about muscle," she continued. "It is about will. Machines can break. Blades can shatter. Shields can fall. But the one thing that never breaks is the spirit that refuses to give up. That is what it means to be human." Her words echoed through the chamber, and the silence deepened again. Some cadets lowered their eyes, ashamed of how they had laughed at her before. Others stared at her with new respect, realizing they were watching history being made. The instructors shifted uncomfortably. They wanted to dismiss her words, to tell the cadets that this was only an exception. But they couldn't. Not after what they had seen. Not after the machines lay broken around her. One young cadet, his voice trembling, finally spoke from the stands. If one human can do this, what happens when more of them arrive? The question spread like a wave. Heads turned, whispers rose, and unease filled the hall. It was not just about one girl anymore. It was about what humanity itself represented. The instructors exchanged tense glances. For years, humans had been treated as strange, fragile outsiders. Yet this single cadet had shaken the very foundation of the academy. If she was a glimpse of what humans could do, then the galaxy had underestimated them far too long. The girl lowered her fists slowly. She did not smile, did not boast. Her face was calm, but her eyes carried a challenge. "Do not fear humans," she said. "Learn from them. Stand with them. Because when the day comes that no weapon is left, and no machine can save you, it will be your hands, your spirit, that decides if you stand or fall." Her words hit harder than her strikes. The cadets felt them deep inside, stirring something they didn't even know was there. The hall was no longer filled with laughter or doubt. It was filled with respect, awe, and quiet fear. The head instructor finally stepped forward, his voice heavy. "You have proven your point, cadet. More than that, you have changed this academy. From this day forward, barehanded combat will no longer be dismissed." Gasps rippled through the cadets. The academy, so proud and unbending, was changing its traditions because of a single human. The girl simply nodded. She didn't need their praise. She didn't need their approval. She had not fought to earn medals or titles. She had fought to prove a truth, that strength did not live in steel or fire, but in the heart that refused to break. As the doors of the proving grounds opened again, she turned and walked out, her steps steady despite the pain in her body. Every cadet's eyes followed her, and not one of them dared laugh now. In that moment, the academy was no longer the same. The cadets would remember this day for the rest of their lives. The day a human girl stood alone, broke the unbreakable, and taught them the true meaning of strength. And though none of them said it out loud, the same thought echoed in every mind. If one human could do this, then what else were humans capable of? The answer, they knew, would change the galaxy forever.